Hey friends, you are watching Simplywell. I'm Marya Gendron. I'm the founder of Simplywell and developed the Simplywell Migraine Relief Protocol. And today I just wanted to give a brief primer on histamine intolerance or histamine overload. Also, the acronym for that is HIT, histamine intolerance. You may have heard about it, you may not have. It's something that people are increasingly becoming aware of, both practitioners and individuals alike. It's not really like an official diagnosis, so your doctor may not be clued into it, but essentially it's just an overload of histamine in the body. And it can manifest in different ways depending on your constitutional weaknesses. So for myself, because I had a lot of lymphatic congestion in the neck and head, my histamine overload and inflammation in my body manifested as migraines, but for other people it can manifest as hives or various other inflammatory conditions. So histamine is just a neurotransmitter. It's essential for our body. It's produced by our body, and it mediates inflammation in the body. So, I don't like to see diseases as discrete entities that come out and attack us, and I also don't like to view our bodies as dysfunctional. I don't see it as a physical dysfunction. What it basically is just the body's self-healing ability has been compromised and assaulted by various pharmaceutical medications. And so vaccines are known to trigger inflammation in the body. Opiates especially are known to do something called degranulation. They degranulate the mast cells that produce histamine so that they end up producing an excess of histamine. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like acetaminophen are especially known to deplete diamine oxidase, which is one of the main enzymes that breaks histamine down. And so if you have an excess of degranulation or a deficiency of the enzyme that breaks down the histamine, you're going to end up with a lot more inflammation and histamine than your body can handle, and that will manifest as these different symptoms. Another pharmaceutical that's really compromising people's health, and this is not often acknowledged in other articles that you'll see on histamine intolerance, and this is sort of a unique insight that I have, is that antibiotics really contribute to a huge amount of inflammation in the body, especially in the colon. And I managed to reduce my inflammation in my colon through the discovery of my Simplywell protocol, and by doing that, realized just what a huge load of histamine was in my colon. So essentially antibiotics, and not just antibiotics, but really especially oral medications that people are taking daily, like a lot of the migraine medications. It's my view that pretty much anything that you put in your mouth that ends up in your stomach is going to alter your gut flora and your microbiome balance. But antibiotics do especially a lot of damage on our gut flora, and they shift the balance away from the healthy gut flora and towards a predominance of histamine-producing bacteria. So even though antibiotics don't directly trigger mast cells or deplete diamine oxidase, they're indirectly making a huge contribution to our overall histamine load, especially in our colon. So there are ways to remedy this. Luckily, there are very easy and natural solutions, such as my Simplywell Migraine Relief Protocol for reducing the overall histamine load in the colon and in the whole body. And you can find out all about that in my ebook if you haven't downloaded it already. But today I just want to talk about which foods trigger histamine in the body, especially if you have low DAO, and which foods are antihistamine foods that we want to eat a lot of. All of this is outlined in my ebook, but just a really basic primer for you, those of you who are just visiting my site for the first time and don't know what histamine intolerance is. So here's the basic issue with food as it relates to histamine, as it relates to food triggers that lead to migraine. So we have any kind of fermented food or aged food is going to have tyramines, tyrosine, or histamine in it. And tyramines and tyrosines are amino acids that also are broken down by DAO, so they will eventually ferment if they're not broken down. If for example, you were to eat some dried dates or some raisins or some aged food such as Parmesan cheese that couldn't be broken down in your small intestine by the DAO, eventually, by the time it made its way to your colon, it would start to ferment and add even more of a histamine load. So with histamine intolerance, a lot of people are managing it by way of completely avoiding and eliminating histamine-rich foods and tyramine-rich foods, which basically is a category of food of all fermented and aged foods, and that's a lot of food to eliminate, especially if you're trying to manage your symptoms purely by way of avoiding those foods, it can get to be a really limited lifestyle and a very, it's a sad way to live because you end up just being really afraid of a lot of different foods or being triggered very easily. Luckily, my migraine relief protocol is really unique in that there's only like a month-long elimination period of these histamine and tyramine-rich foods. And while your gut flora is stabilizing from the other aspects of the protocol, you need to avoid those foods. But once that gut balance has been established, you can reintegrate these foods and actually reach a point where you can eat all of the foods that you used to have to avoid a migraine and not be triggered. So it's really, I feel like what I have to offer with this migraine protocol is really, really unique and helpful for people who have just been living in a life of denial, and denying themselves a lot of the simple pleasures that other people in their life partake of. So, just a really quick overview here of foods high in histamine or tyramine. Chili, cayenne, cinnamon, clove, and nutmeg, and anise all have histamine in them. For me, cinnamon was a really big trigger, and that was actually what clued me into the fact that I had a histamine overload. Red berries, berries are ripened by histamine. Sausages or any kind of cured meat. Wine, beer, cheese, lunch meat. Overripe bananas or avocados, although, perfectly ripe bananas and avocados seem to be fine. Yogurt, bacon, dried fruit, pickles, most condiments, most salad dressings, tofu, soy sauce, vinegar, canned fish, miso, nutritional yeast, kombucha. A lot of supplements are made through fermentation, especially the B vitamins, which we know we need when we have migraines, but those will trigger migraines. Probiotics, vitamin C, sauerkraut, chocolate. So it's a really long list, and there's a lot of different lists out there. I'm going to provide a link below for some of the other lists, but I think the good news is that on my protocol, you don't really have to get that detailed into all of the nuances of this because your gut is going to stabilize pretty quickly, especially if you're not on a lot of daily meds. The people who are on medications every single day, it seems those medications tend to throw their gut flora off and make it take longer for the protocol to work for them. But in any case, yeah, it's a large category of food. So in the first month on the protocol, the recommendation to really just make this simple, because that's what we're about at Simplywell, is just to eat fresh food. Just focus on fresh salads and vegetables and fruits. And then also the antihistamine foods I want to highlight here because they will help stabilize mast cells and reduce the histamine load. So those foods are watercress, pea sprouts, onions, garlic, moringa, holy basil, thyme, tarragon, chamomile, ginger root, which is a nice one because you can't usually eat the other spicy foods, so the ginger really, gives some character to the otherwise bland foods that you can eat on this diet. Lotus root, turmeric, pomegranate, apples, capers, mangosteens, peaches, nettle, peppermint, Nigella sativa, which is an amazing herb, galanga root, olive oil, and black rice. So that's just a basic overview. Like I said before, I'm going to be providing some more comprehensive articles and links down below. Just wanted to give you a basic sense for what histamine overload and intolerance is and spread the good news that it can be managed very effectively with very simple foods that Mother Nature provided us, as outlined in my Simplywell Migraine Relief Protocol. So download the ebook if you haven't already, and have a fabulous day. Take care.